everybody, it's Cheri Dotterer here at Tier 1 Interventions Podcast. I'm here today with Jonily Zupancic, and we are in class today with a live group of ladies and gentlemen who are learning about the Mastery Math method. So I'm going to let Jonily talk, and if there's any intervention that I want to add to the puzzle, we will do. But for now, I'm signing it all over to Jonily, and let us learn a little bit about mathematics, girl.
Y'all, this is Jay-Z. I'm Jonily Zupancic. I'm your math specialist, your main mathineer. If you are listening to this podcast or you're watching this podcast on YouTube, I want to give a disclaimer and a warning. This is level 2. You're listening in on a level 2 version of Mastery Math Method. Mastery Math Method is strengthening our Tier 1 core general classroom. We cannot have in our schools effective interventions and effective Tier 2 and Tier 3 without the strongest core. So if you're listening to this, that's the mindset that I want you to have. You should be listening to this if you are a general classroom teacher, a special ed teacher, a parent, a school board member, a superintendent, a curriculum director, a principal. Every stakeholder should be involved in the qualities of a strong Tier 1 general classroom environment and the experiences that students are going to have. This is Brian. This is part of Brian's story. This is true story. When Brian got to 7th grade, he said we were doing a task where he had to add these up, and he said, Mr. Pans, I know in my head what this is, because Brian had a very good concept of number. He just didn't have the math ability. We talk about that in Making Mathineers. Like, a number sense is something that's innate and intuitive. It's that mental math piece. He had that outstanding, but he didn't have the math ability, which is that procedural algorithmic. And oftentimes we judge based on the procedural algorithmic, and that's where we get our data from. And we want kids to be able to do that, but we don't know how to take the instruction from extracting their perspective and what they have concept wise and connecting it to the procedural. And so what Brian said to me is, I know that if I add 40, 40, and 40, that I'm going to get 120. Make sure I do this right, because it's late and I'm going on 3 hours of sleep for 4 nights in a row. And then I know that 4, 4, and 4 is 12. So I know that if I'm looking at 120 and 12, I know I have 132. So in his head, he can process through that, and he can do it accurately and efficiently and fluently and automatically and all of those things that we want from students. However, he says, but when Mr. Grapner is stacking and adding, then I don't get 132 that way. I get 12, 12. So by 7th grade, this is a much younger standard, but the numbers came up in one of our 7th grade tasks. And so Brian had enough self-awareness that he was able to ask me, here's the situation. This is what I'm getting in my head. This is what I get when I stack it. This is not what Mr. Grapner gets. Where's the disconnect? And so in the Mastery Math Method, we talk about the strategies to connect for kids that have the conceptual but not the procedural, and how to bridge that gap. And it's by 7th grade, by the secondary level, and this is why we say that improving number sense is not intervention. It should just be natural instruction at the secondary level. We shouldn't expect that kids come in just knowing this. We have to explicitly and directly make this connection so that they understand how the notation, symbols, and procedures match what they already know conceptually.
All right, Amy, tell us. Incognito, Amy.
I
Lighting
know
is getting really bad.
here's my lone light that I have on in this room right now. My eyes burn, like first day with kids, so tired. I have several Brians this year, FYI. I'm
Welcome.
going to have several Brians. What was my takeaway? I took screenshots just to remind me of not screenshots, but little pictures. Like the pre-planning stuff, how I said like it's in a different way. I know I've seen the sensory motor cognitive with the little sub things underneath it of the vestibular and that kind of stuff. I can never keep straight what all of those are, but I know I got that from Cheri in combos. And then I like how, like, the planning part, it was bridging both of the things that I've gone to you guys, like either individually and together, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like the planning part was all stuff that I've mostly talked a bit with Jonily. I feel like I thought of that mostly as math stuff. But the pre-planning up to the academic, I felt like was Cheri stuff that I've gotten from her. I don't know. My brain's not working anymore though.
Thanks so much for joining us for this session of the Mastery Math Method. If what you've heard tonight has sparked your curiosity, don't wait. This is the time to explore how these strategies can transform math outcomes for your students. Let's grab a coffee and talk about how you can bring these results into your own classroom or district. Until then, remember, every student deserves the chance to see themselves as a mathematician. And as Cheri and Jonily say, go be awesome, go be brilliant, for you were put here for such a time as this.